Another way to work this is by using embossing mats. This is from Cake Connections. They have a lot of stuff for embossing mats for like making flowers, and this is butterflies and a bunch of other things. You can also use any of your plastic impression mats that you use for fondant. You know, you roll your fondant and get an impression, the plastic ones. You can use those too with gelatin, and this is the technique you would do for those. So you put the sheet down. I'm trying to remember which way it is. Okay, this has to be really hot. I cut a piece of the mat, just the size I needed to do a butterfly. I think it was the size I needed. And I'm going to take a brush and brush it on the mat. Take care not to get any bubbles in it. You can see it makes the mat bow a little bit because it's really hot. Okay, then immediately take the sugar sheet with the dull side onto the gelatin. Start at one end and just put it down like so. And don't move it around, because if you do, you're going to smear the color, the food color, the sugar color, you're going to smear it. Just leave it on like that. And within, I don't know, probably 5 minutes or so, it'll be cool enough that you can lift it up and move it. It's actually going to cool pretty fast in the house. Depends on the temperature of your house and whatnot. Let's see, this gelatin's already congealing here. Gelatin cools really fast, so you got to work pretty fast. See, it's already sticky. I had it pretty hot, probably with all the burst. It was probably close to 30 seconds. And, you know, first a 15-second burst, then another 10 seconds, and then another 10 seconds. So it's a little over 30 seconds total. I had it really hot, as in it hurts your finger to touch it hot. Okay. So I'm going to move these out of the way. Well, actually, I need to wait for this one. For this one, once it starts to cool off a little bit, once it starts to cool, you cannot leave that on overnight, because I've got a plastic sheet, then I've got gelatin, and then I've got another plastic sheet. And it's not going to dry. It's just going to get moldy. So as soon as this starts to congeal, it gets tacky and gummy. Then what you do is you're going to take this plastic sheet off. I can't do it yet because it's not ready yet. Let me leave it there for a second. This one I'm just going to set in front of the fan and let it dry, and it'll turn into this. And the gelatin peels off the acetate. So, okay. So while we're waiting for that to cool, what I did now is I actually turned this over onto the dull side. It's a little duller on this side. And I actually traced with a pencil onto this. It doesn't trace real well, but it's good enough for me to cut out a piece. So I actually traced onto here. See? And you can cut it out. It's gelatin. So you can just cut this out. Ta-da. Okay, and see, it's almost like paper. It's very thin. So you can flavor your gelatin too, just so you know. It can be, use a flat soda, like a clear soda, or you can use like a artificial sweetener. Just put a little of that powder in, and then add a candy oil, and you can flavor your gelatin. So these can be flavored. But I don't expect anyone to eat these because we're going to wire them. So in case you're going to make something edible, that's what you want to do. Okay. That's also one of the reasons that we want to make this somewhat thin. When you pour it on, you want to kind of spread it out, because you don't want the thick layer of gelatin. You want a fairly thin layer of gelatin. Okay, so that's why we do that. That's why we make it thin, so we can make a leaf out of it. Okay, so I did that. Now I'm going to use a 20, there's a couple different sizes you can use. You can use 28, 30 gauge wires. I'm actually going to use a 26 gauge wire because it's easier for my fingers. It's kind of heavy. You don't have to have something this thick unless your petals are really thick. And what you're going to do is you're going to dip the wire. I've got the shiny face down. Okay, so the dull side is facing me. I'm going to dip my wire in my gelatin, in my warm gelatin, and I'm going to lay it onto the sheet on the back and let it dry. And it doesn't take very long, about, I don't know, 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes at the most.